All right, a lot to talk about in this Friday, February 7th edition of the Carolina Weather Video. I'm meteorologist Matthew East here with you. Let's start off with a look from the web camera at the base of the Cataloochee ski resort area, looking very, very nice. The snow guns fired up, and the ski resort area is all sporting extremely nice conditions. It'll be a great weekend and early week of skiing ahead up that way. Temperature there near Maggie Valley is 21 degrees at the time I'm cutting this video. Yesterday's high is pretty chilly. Much different scenario from what we had seen at times earlier in the week. And you're looking at high only at 42 yesterday in Charlotte, 41 Greensboro, 42 Raleigh, sub-freezing yesterday in Boone. Currently 30s in the Piedmont, 20s in the mountains in most spots, 30s along the coast too. Last night, that storm system behaved about as expected. It overachieved a bit in the precip over in the eastern parts of North Carolina, enough to whiten the ground in some spots over that way. But as far as the foothills and the Piedmont are concerned, a lot of virga, but there were some areas of sprinkles and flurries, and a couple spots even further to the west in North and South Carolina got a little dusting, but as expected, this was just not a big deal. Precipitation too light to be a big deal. Now the next disturbance causing some precipitation near the Rio Grande River Valley. That will kind of energize an area of low pressure near the coast early tomorrow morning. Here's the overall look from the past 24 hours. Again, we await the next storm system to roll on in. Now, there'll be a quiet day on Futurecast, as you can see there. Highs in the upper 40s and lower 50s across the Piedmont today. Not a big deal, no problems. Now, tonight, the clouds will increase, and then tomorrow morning, with that area of low pressure developing off to the south of us, that'll try to throw precipitation up our way. Now, again, the moisture looks very limited, but certainly I could envision a scenario where the radar is more filled in than what you see indicated here on Futurecast. Maybe some areas of light rain and light snow back across the foothills in the Piedmont, but light is the key word. It is not going to be a big deal. Again, the moisture very, very limited with that system. And then a quiet and a little bit milder Sunday sets up for us before all the activity next week begins to unfold. Now, I'll show you a lot more of the detailed modeling in just a second, but this is the European model solution. And it is a very wintry weather-producing solution across a good portion of the Carolinas. And that's the overall basic setup as this system moves on through the region. And here are the snow charts from the European model. And that's a healthy snow event. And, of course, on the southern fringe of that, you get a good bit of ice as well. Now, the Zero-Z GFS was much lighter, but it is coming in with a much more intense system on the 6Z run, although it, taken verbatim, the lower level temperatures are a little warmer. But again, I'll show you more of that in just a second. But the GFS has really been flipping and flopping up at 500 millibars primarily. And again, I'll show you more on that here in just a second. Very quickly, before we get into the detailed modeling, if you have a ski trip this weekend, the conditions look great and only will get better as we go through the weekend. All right, let's step through some of the modeling for next week. All right, this is the Canadian model. This is Monday evening. A little lead piece of energy moves through, gives some rain or snow showers to the state of North Carolina and northern South Carolina. A lot of that would be probably light rain due to the low-level temperature profile. And there's the main system coming in. This is Wednesday morning on the Canadian model. And then you go to Wednesday afternoon, and then finally Wednesday evening as that system moves through up at 850 millibars. This is Wednesday morning, so that's your rough rain snow line running from Charlotte to the northern Sandhills. Surface temperatures below freezing all the way to the coastal plain on the Canadian Wednesday morning. And then Wednesday evening, there's your surface temperature sub-freezing even down into a good chunk of South Carolina. Okay, so that's the Canadian. Let's go to the European. Let's start off aloft, what it looks like. Pretty intense little southern branch piece of energy Tuesday evening. And then you go 18 hours later, and that's what it looks like Wednesday early afternoon. So at the surface, you get something that looks like this. First of all, there's your lead little piece of energy moving through Monday. Again, probably some rain showers, a lot of that activity outside of the mountains. But here we go. This is Wednesday afternoon, early afternoon. So this precipitation moves into North Carolina during the morning. What type of precip? Well, there's the European 850 freezing line, Charlotte, a little bit south of Greensboro in the Triangle region. And your surface temperatures sub-freezing deep down into northeast Georgia on the European model. So again, at face value, What you see here, even down in northeast Georgia, that's ice. Upstate of South Carolina, freezing rain or sleet depending on the exact temperature profile, and then eventually when you get further north into North Carolina, it's snow. Again, this is just this particular run of the European. We go 6 hours later. All right, so let me go back there. There's this chart, 6 hours later. That's what it looks like. And again, you go look at the temperature profile. You're still sub-freezing at 850, North Georgia, westernmost upstate of South Carolina, and a good portion of North Carolina, I-85, and points north and west. There's your surface temperature sub-freezing, again, still deep down into northeast Georgia, much of western South Carolina. All right, and then there is overnight Wednesday night. The system beginning to pull away, but you're still looking at 850 temperature sub-freezing in northwestern North Carolina, and surface temperature still at that hour way below freezing deep down into northeast Georgia. So that is a very significant winter storm on the European model. I'm going to compare that to what it looks like on the ensemble. Let's go back. Well, this is 138 hours. Okay, that's the operational. And then here is the ensemble mean. And the bottom line here is that's a good indication of a winter storm. Signs of a low pressure in the northern Gulf, good cold air damming, and that looks like a pretty good winter storm on the European with a decent ensemble agreement, at least in the mean. Now, let's go to the GFS. This was the 0Z run of the GFS. It had a radically different solution in terms of the timing of this, and the reason is aloft, up at 500 millibars. That is a much weaker diffuse look up at 500 millibars on the 0Z run of the GFS. Let me see if I can grab the European chart from a similar time frame. Look how much sharper that trough is and slower the trough is as well back into Texas. And so the result on the GFS was a Tuesday system. Precipitation in North Carolina, mainly in the form of snow, moved through Tuesday and then exited very quickly Tuesday night. Now, eventually, you got a low pressure to form along the coast all the way out at Thursday morning. That brought a little bit of additional precip to the eastern half of North Carolina. But again, that was a much different scenario from some of the other modeling in terms of timing and intensity of this system. But just off the presses here is the 6Z GFS, and it is much more in line with the timing of some of the other modeling. You have an initial wave of precip on the 6Z GFS Tuesday, so a lot of that's in the form of snow in North Carolina, and then you go to the main system, which begins to roll in much later. This is Wednesday afternoon and evening. Cold air damming very pronounced aloft. There's your surface, your freezing line rather at 850 millibars, but your surface freezing line is dipping into North Carolina. Again, taking at face value, this is a warmer model run. But again, let's look at the surface features. There's Wednesday early evening, and then overnight Wednesday night into Thursday morning. That low pressure lifts up the coast. So that is a much different scenario on the 6Z GFS than they might have had even 6 hours earlier on the 0Z GFS. So what I think will happen, let me go back to this chart right here. It all kind of depends on how sharp this piece of energy is as it rolls across and whether or not it gets any influence from the northern branch and tries to phase. If you're looking at possibilities for snow fans, what could go wrong, I think the more likely scenario of what could go wrong would be what the 0Z GFS showed. You get more of a weak system, very little, if any, phasing, and it just kind of turns into a flatter wave. I think if something's going to go awry, that scenario would be the more likely way it would go, as opposed to this winding up and cutting up way west and being a warm rain scenario. So I think, again, if you're going to see something go awry, if you're a snow fan, it would be a trend toward a weaker system. But I'm of the inclination that there's a good chance a good chunk of the region will have a winter weather event of some sort next week. It's just kind of honing in on the details. All right, that is it for today. Everybody have a wonderful weekend, and God bless.